Okay, class, let's take a look at organizing a proposal. Now, the main thing you need to know about a proposal is that is your way of solving a problem in the working place. And whenever you identify a problem in the workplace, you should always have a solution that travels along with it. There's nothing that a supervisor hates more than somebody who just identifies a bunch of problems without talking about how those problems can be solved, or at least proposing how those problems can be solved, because that makes you look proactive when you do that. And so that's what the proposal is all about. So its main purpose is to identify a problem in the workplace in detail and then provide some solutions to that particular problem. Now, there's a few other things that the proposal is intended to do, and I'll go through that as we move along. Let's look at the organization. So we start with the top of it. You'll see that this is very familiar because this is pretty much a memo. Your business proposal, especially when it's an internal proposal rather than an external. So the difference is that an internal proposal is when you try to solve a problem within your workplace, rather than an external proposal where you talk about how you could solve the problem for somebody else outside of your workplace, maybe another company or another client. But your assignment is going to be to complete an internal proposal. So let's take a look at that. So like I said, you've got the memo top. You've got the to, the from, and the subject and the date. Now that's very familiar. You'll notice here that this particular sample starts with this statement. Healthcare costs are rising. In the long run, implementing a wellness program in our corporate culture will decrease the company's healthcare costs. In only 2 sentences, this proposal identifies the problem, healthcare costs are rising, and then proposes a summary of the solution that's going to be addressed within the rest of the proposal. And that's this one, implementing a wellness program. So right away, the executive who's reading this realizes that the problems are the healthcare costs are rising. The solution is that I want this wellness program to happen. In this next paragraph, they give us some introductory and background information about where these facts came from. So yeah, you said healthcare costs are rising in the first paragraph, but what told you that? Where did these statistics come from? So you see that they use a little bit of research here. And now sometimes you're going to be identifying a problem that's very specific to your own workplace. But you can still use research for that. You could use research from people who are within your workplace or supervisors in your workplace or clients. In this particular instance, they're talking about a problem that is common across multiple workplaces. So it was easy for them to find some research. So here it is right there. Research indicates nearly 70% of healthcare costs are from common illnesses. So now, again, they're getting into more detail about exactly what this problem is, what the nature of the problem is. And then they talk a little bit more about how it affects workplaces. Now, this is very much audience focused. Like it or not, your audience is going to be very interested in costs and expenses. Because in most cases, you're going to be writing up the hierarchy for a proposal, which means you're going to be talking to a supervisor, for example, about how to solve a problem. And in many cases, your supervisor is very interested in costs and cost cutting. Okay, so then speak right into that value. It doesn't always have to be costs, but a lot of times it will be. Or maybe they value bringing more customers in. That's the case as well. So you speak to that value. So then you'll notice that they have a section that talks about the benefits of healthier employees. So this person wants healthier employees. They get into detail now about how that benefits the workplace. It's very audience focused, this benefit. It talks about how these employees are going to be better performing and more efficient. And again, that's the you view. That's something your audience is going to be concerned with. So here is the general benefits of your solution, whatever your solution might be. They get into some detail about that. Now they get into the nitty-gritty, the process of how this program is going to be implemented, right? So you start out with an introduction stating what the problem is, proposing how you intend to solve the problem, talking about the benefits of solving that problem, and now the implementation is a step-by-step process, and you can use bullet points or numbers to indicate how you intend for this problem to be solved. So in this case, they say that they're talking about some simple changes. The first simple change that they're proposing is a smoke-free environment. The second simple change they're proposing is to educate the employees. The third one is to expand the employee assistance program. So those are 3 steps to the implementation, of trying to solve this problem. That's really good because that's going to lead your audience to realize that this is important to you and you've already thought about how this program can be put into place. This section right here talks about some similar solutions that have occurred in other businesses. This can be a very persuasive thing to include in your proposal. You can look at how other companies have solved this problem and then give us some bullet points about what their solutions were and then tie those solutions to what your solutions are. So that's all part of the implementation step. So that's your next step here, the implementation of whatever your solution is. And now, like anything that you try to implement in the workplace, there are going to be obstacles that get in your way from implementing that. So you have a section that identifies the obstacles, the individual and financial obstacles in this case of what's going to interfere with your solution. So they get into detail about those obstacles. They talk about how it might cost quite a bit, but then they talk about how overall it's so important that they do this regardless of the obstacles. And that plays as part of their conclusion. Okay, so to go back to the organizational process, let's start out with a paragraph that identifies the problem and summarizes what your solution is. Then you have a paragraph that backs up what that solution is going to be using statistics and research. Then you have a paragraph that talks about the benefits of what you're proposing, how that's going to benefit the workplace, how that's going to benefit your audience. Then you have a section that talks about the step-by-step process of implementing the program that you're proposing, whatever that may be. There it is right there. And then you talk about the obstacles that might interfere with the implementation of that. You identify what those obstacles are. And then as a conclusion, you talk about how those obstacles can be overcome and why those obstacles should be overcome. And then you give us a follow-up of asking to communicate further in the future. So this one says, I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to discussing this proposal with you further next week. So your layout is going to be very similar to a memo, and your organization is going to follow these steps that I've just addressed. Good luck with it.